Okay, so while everyone is joining, I'll just show you some food illustration books that I have collected. This will give you some ideas of how to use food illustration. This is something I came up across some time ago. I still haven't finished reading it. It's more like it's a cartoon, but it speaks a lot about food. So there's a lot of cooking and recipes and very nice animation kind of illustration where she's illustrated recipes, and then she's also illustrated about the experience of food. It's quite a lovely book to pick up. It's called Relish by Lucy Kinsley, Niley, something like that. And the other one that I have had for a while is this is a very nice, it's a website called They Draw and Cook, TDAC. And there's also another one that they have, They Draw and Travel. So this book has, it invites recipes by, from people. So you can send your own recipe, and if it's good enough, then they will publish it. And they've published quite a few books. So it's a slightly weird format. It's like a wide book. And there are all sorts of styles of illustration. This one is really nice. It's very simple stuff. And the focus is on the illustration, not so much the recipe. So they're not really bothered about writing everything very rigorously. Although you can do that as well. So you can check out this website. There are a lot of ideas on food illustration that you can find inspiration with. Many of these illustrations, I think, have been made digitally, but there are some that are also made by hand. Even something like this, quite quirky. So this book is They Draw and Cook. This was, I think, the first book that they came up with. And after that, then I've not bothered buying any, but you can, there are quite a few. And the website is also called the same, They Draw and Cook. .com. I don't know if you can see that. So today we're going to do one, we're going to make 2 illustrations, almost as if we are going to be doing a recipe book. So hopefully at some point you'll be inspired to do your own recipe books. Yeah, I have one here which I made last week. I think I showed this to you. Did I show you this one? This one I made for a friend who wanted to commemorate her mother-in-law's 75th birthday with her recipes. So all the recipes are written in text, which is easy enough to do, or you can also write it by hand. Her mother-in-law had created all these recipes. She created this book where she'd written the recipe by hand and she cut out pictures from magazines and put it in the book. Very cute. And this is a very tiny one. So it's a lovely thing to make for maybe family recipes. So that's a nice place for you to start with. Hopefully after this class, maybe you'll be inspired to start jotting down recipes. Even if they're simple, somewhere you can start. So in order to simulate something like a recipe book, today we will, if you're using a book like this, an A4 size book, you can fold the page in half so that you get a crease in the center, which will look like the binding. And you get a certain sense of proportion of how big your illustration should be, and we will work out how to distribute the layout in this space. Okay, so yeah, there are a few things to remember here when we are making anything in a book. There are certain rules about layout design. And I'll share these notes with you as well. So the first thing with layout is you need to first decide on the number of elements you want. So you know all the these are just guidelines. They're not necessarily rules that you can't break, but there needs to be a good enough reason. But this gives you some indication of how or where to begin. So first and foremost, the elements, you decide on quantity or number of elements that you have, space or volume, and then possible placement. That's all there is to layout. Where can you place an element and how you can create a layout? Now, the pictures we're going to make today, I'll just share them with you so you get an idea of what we are doing for recipe illustration. I just have a simple pizza and a brownie, or I think it's a lava cake with vanilla ice cream. Now, the two are generally had together. That's why I have put them together. And through this, we will just cover how you can put these recipes on two facing pages in a recipe book. So if we are going to make half a pizza with a slice cut up, and we have a very nice dessert plate, we now have shape that we can at least meditate upon. This is the kind of shape that we want to put in our books. So very often people will start illustrating without giving a thought to layout. So what you can do is first try a dummy layout in a thumbnail size illustration. So if this is how your book is going to be, what are the options that we have? The most obvious would be to have your pizza here and then have the text and the recipe here, and likewise your plate of lava cake and the ice cream. The other options are you could probably have both elements cut out. You can have a big blown up illustration of the dessert and a slightly reduced illustration of the pizza. So both of them look similar. Or you could also do something more creative where you could put the pizza on one side on the left. And on the other side, you could make a creative um, depiction of the dessert. So it's like one circle, and then you have the text around it. So depending upon your layout, then you can start looking for reference images, or you click photographs of your food accordingly. So these are the possible layouts. This is the possible placement of items, depending upon how much space you need for the text and how many items you have on the page. Sometimes you have more than one item. So if you've got pizzas and you have other things that you want to put in it, like a bottle of oil or maybe the raw ingredients, they could probably come in later, or you could have them in a picture form at the bottom of the page, or you could have the whole thing in a whole illustration in a picture form. Even that is possible. So today we are going to do this layout where we are going to focus on making the painting of a finished item and a little bit about text. So we are going to make the illustration in pencil or pen. And then on another sheet, I'm going to give you a few guidelines about how to write text. Now in text as well, we have three types of lettering styles. So you need to figure out the number of lettering styles you need. And then in those lettering styles also, there is a hierarchy, which I will speak about as we go. So you have to establish the hierarchy. In text also, you have color, shape, size that you need to decide. So all of these are things that you need to first work out before you start making a recipe book or even one recipe. Now we'll come back and add a few elements to this as we feel the need, but this is the basic that you can begin with. Now, for our illustration purpose right now, we're not focusing so much on the recipe, more on the illustration. So I'm going to make the illustration pretty large, but it helps to write down the recipe in your hand, so you know how many words are in the recipe beforehand, but we won't do that right away. So for the pizza, it's fairly simple. We're just going to make these shapes like we did the illustration of the vegetables. It's all about shape and color, placement of the objects, and putting the right shade in the right place. That's about it. There isn't really anything more complex than that. But we have to create a sense of dimension, of freshness, or at least make the pizza look delicious to eat. And on the left, we are going to create this shape, which is first the dessert and then the plate around it. So I'm going to make some of the illustration in pencil and then most of the illustration in pen. The pencil illustration is just for me to get a sense of sizing and placement. So this is going to be like guidelines. So here's my plate for the dessert. And as you can see, if I can just break this up for you, 1 second, let me show you how what I'm seeing, then you know what to look out for yourselves. So here, first and foremost, you have an oval shaped dish. As always, you can break the design up into horizontal and vertical halves, and then suddenly you start seeing a different placement altogether in relation to the plate that we made. An almost circular dollop of ice cream and an oval shaped lava cake. And if you notice the placement, these circles are not concentric, they're a little to the right. The oval of the lava cake is almost the same kind of oval as the plate, but it is slightly to the right and top, not in the center of the plate, but it doesn't matter. Once you have these shapes in place, then it's very easy to just put in the shape of the sauce, another shape for the raspberries, and the placement of the spoon as well. Now, the spoon appears a little blurred in the backdrop. We're not going to bother with that. We're not going to make it look blurred because although it's easy to make, I don't want to add another technique to this right now. Okay, so you get an idea of what I'm seeing so that you can also create the same for yourselves. So this is my plate. I'm trying to keep it as circular or as oval as I can visually make out on the illustration on the reference image. Now I have the vertical and horizontal line. My dollop sticks out of the plate just a little bit. It almost touches, I think, the center.
Miss, how
And
big
then
is this?
it's about this big. See, you get a sense of, I can't tell you in inches, but obviously nothing more than just the palm of my hand because this has become an A5 size sheet now.
Okay.
And then I'm going to make this this little depression that has been created because of a spoonful having been taken off of the plate. And then make the spoon itself. So just pay attention to the shapes that you see of the spoon. Don't try to make it look like it is depressed or anything. Just objectively see the lines, whether they're straight, whether they're slightly curved, or whatever you can make of it. Okay. All right, I'm just going to take a picture of this quickly. Oh, sorry. A little distracted. Okay, I put the pencil illustration on the group, so if you want to refer to that and make this pencil drawing, that's also fine. Now to make this in pen, we can just look at the reference image and start drawing very sketchy lines around the shapes. You don't at any point want to make very sharp, straight or firm lines wherever there is food. All food or organic elements are usually have a very wobbly line around it. So hold the pen a little distance away and just make lines like this, which are not very firm. If you make a circle over here, it's not going to look like ice cream. Now, when you're illustrating, there are all sorts of shapes in very subtle colors you will see on the ice cream also. Just make a few of those shapes as well. If you see them, but if you don't see them, then don't make them. Don't force yourself and make anything. Now, once you've made the dollop of ice cream, everything else will be sized or resized according to that element that you have inked. The pencil lines are only guidelines. So if you need to move away a little bit from the pencil lines, please do so. So this is one classic mistake that I've found a lot of people doing. They feel that once you've drawn it in pencil, you have to stick to what is drawn in pencil. But what happens usually is that as you start making the illustration firmer, you've spent more time observing the object that you are illustrating. So your data starts becoming a little more firm. What you are seeing starts becoming a little clearer, and it can definitely be different from what you have drawn before in pencil. So don't be shy to review what you are seeing. Now, when you make the raspberries, remember to make the top portion first and then tuck the bottom of the oval inside the top oval. So it's this oval made, and then the inside portion is tucked in like that, so that you get the impression of a roundness over here. If you again make just an oval, you won't get that roundness. So you make this line first, and then make the inside, make the bottom from the inside like that, so that the curve of the top comes around the curve of the bottom. In terms of depicting a dimension, roundness, thickness, ovalness, all these little things actually are very important. It's usually just these lines and a little bit of shadow in the right place, and suddenly your object starts looking extremely three-dimensional. Now, when the other raspberry has been made, as you can see, it's pointing a little upward. This turn is exactly opposite. One second. How's it going? Are you getting it? Yeah. Nice. Okay, good.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, I feel that my sketch is looking a bit flat. That's why I've not inked it yet.
It will look flat in pencil.
Okay.
Even in pen, it will look flat. Only when we color it will we be able to create some depth.
Okay.
Hmm. Color it bindas. Even if it looks flat, it's fine. It'll look like a cartoon ice cream. That's okay.
Okay.
Okay, now even in the spoon, there is a little bit of chocolate. So draw that part separately first. Then draw the
What are you
outline.
using, ma'am?
Sorry,
What point are you using?
what am I using? 03.
Okay. 03.
So these little things like the design on the spoon, don't make that whole design. Make a few lines to indicate that there is some kind of design on the spoon. That's it. I made the spoon first because that lava cake has flown underneath the spoon. So I want to be able to show that. And I'm not drawing it on this side as well because we have to first draw the plate. Now, drawing the plate can be a bit of a challenge because getting a nice circular shape is quite a nightmare. But if you break this up, if your first oval with pencil has been good, then it's just a matter of finishing up those lines. So my trick is to break up my line into quarters. And wherever I feel I'm not sure I can continue this line, I just stop and then I continue on the other side. Now this is not a perfect plate shape. I got it very well here, but I know this part is my weakness. But I am not going to, I can't erase it one right now, and I'm not going to focus on it. Sometimes if your illustration looks good, these little things don't really matter. It's also gone a little further than the raspberries than in the illustration. The other thing I'm doing is making this inside line. Again, here it's not a continuous line, it's broken in places, but this line is not drawn like a dotted line. Please don't draw a line like this or dashed, even spaced. It is just broken, and as it breaks, you pick up the brush very subtly so that you don't see the edges. Otherwise, it'll look like it's stitching. And once that is done, now I can freely draw the shapes of all the vanilla and just look at the shapes and draw them as you see them. There'll be swirls of color. Shall I give you 5 minutes to finish this because we have to draw the pizza as well? And the system is the same. So those of you who finished who want to move on to the other side, you can draw the pizza and you can decide whether you want to draw it big or you want to draw just a quarter of the pie, just the top half over here, or the entire half over here. That's up to you.
Aditi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Nice. Very good. So your lava cake has become a little more space saucer types, but
Yeah.
it's okay. That's fine. There are cakes like that. As long as it's colored accurately, it won't matter. It's just
Okay.
a very subjective shape.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, good. Now for the other side, I want you to attempt this directly in pen because all these shapes are very, very unfirm, you can say, infirm, unfirm. So we should be able to do this without a problem. Don't make it too large though, as I've always recommended, don't make your illustration bigger than the size or the area of your palm. So just about so much is fine. Oh wow, so sweet, Bhakti. See, this is looking great. You were
I
worried.
guess I was just nervous.
Yeah, see, it's looking awesome.
Yes.
Good job. Well done.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, now for this one, you just have to move your pen very freely on the paper. So decide if you want. Now, again, over here, if you're not sure about your shape or size first, give yourself a semicircle where just below half, we will cut in a slice. Who's this, Karan? Very good. Very nice. Everyone is doing a great job. Then you have this garnish, and then you have the rest of the pie here, and then it finishes off. So these shapes can be a little weird. So make those in pencil first. Fit in that slice of pie where it ought to be. And once this is done, just start drawing in pen. Automatically your lines will be wobbly, and that's exactly what we want. There's a very sharp edge here, sharp for a pizza, but it is still a wobbly line. So don't draw a straight line. In any event, please don't draw lines like this. If you are unsure of your lines, this is the worst line that you can make. This will only make your illustration look very hesitant. If the line is supposed to be like that and you even draw something like this, but it's a firm, confident line, this will not look bad. So don't stop in between and don't draw this or something like this. No. This will all look really bad. So just hold your pen and just let it go. How bad can it be? No? Just let it go. Now here you can make a few shapes like that. Remember how we had made those painted vegetables or flowers? Just a few weird shapes like this. Because underneath that, we have to draw the slice. Now, before you draw the slice, you can see that part of this cherry tomato is obscuring the edge of that slice. So draw that and then try and draw this angle properly. Keep it about the same distance out. My slice has gone a little further out than I would have liked. Pay attention to the angles, the distances that you are drawing everything at. And again, over here, you can draw the elements as they come in the path of your illustration. So you don't always have to make the line, but there will be some overlap, some elements that are coming and sitting in this space. So draw those. Drawing something like this over the edge of the pizza will become very difficult and make for a very shoddy illustration. Over here, there is no obstruction, so we can make it, but I've not drawn it right to the end because there's a little sliver of cheese in the center. It doesn't go and meet the end. And I don't see the other side because that's obscured by this garnish. And then all of this comes very close. And there's a corresponding piece of cherry tomato where the slice has been cut. So don't even look at this as a pizza. Just look at it as the shapes and colors that you see and complete the illustration like that. And that's it. Every place that you go, you just see how the line proceeds. And where you can't see it, like right at the top over here, you can just make a conjecture that more or less it's going to be exactly like what you have. So let that line go the way it wants to. There's a fold over here. There's some crumbs here. So the edges of the inside fold, this seems to be like a hand rolled pizza. So it's got a fold from this side. So you have a definite dark edge towards the inside. And there are some textures over here as well. So wherever you see textures, make some free flowing lines there. And then just continue to make these shapes as you see them. Don't make a whole cherry tomato unless you see the whole cherry tomato. There are lots of toppings and the toppings are obscuring the tomato. And even within the tomato, you could probably create these shapes like this as you see them. So all our lessons in objectively looking at our reference images are going to hold you in good stead today. Now, because of the cooking, the tomatoes are rather wilted. So they will not have a very sharp edge. They're all going to be slightly wrinkled up. And there are lots of toppings, like I think this looks like ginger, and there are some spices. What we have to avoid very actively is drawing straight lines anywhere. And sometimes even continuous lines. Break up your lines. Now, if you get stuck in some place and you can't figure out, or you made the wrong shape or something, doesn't matter. Just continue to draw this. I doubt whether anybody will see that as a mistake. There are going to be some places where your size and shape might go a little wonky. But if once you get an idea of more or less how things are working in this scheme, you can just continue painting like that. Maybe I'll add one more wrinkled, yeah, tomato from here. That should do it. So this is nice. I quite like this. Now today we are going to need an eraser. Like the last time I showed you how to use this, now the flexible eraser. So just like last time, use the eraser to remove extra graphite from your paper. And wherever it is not, you need to work in a small area, then just press down. As far as possible, avoid going back and forth. In some cases, like in the case of this, if your circle is not completely defined, if it's just more or less there, you might not even need to use an eraser because those lines can easily be absorbed in the painting itself. Okay, how's everyone doing? Nice, very good, Rana. Good job.
But my upper part is sort of become like a worldly border design.
Has it? What do you mean?
You know, the upper looks too symmetrical, the upper half of the pizza like this one.
Upper half of the pizza looks like what?
The border,
Uh-huh.
I somehow managed to make it look like a worldly painting border. Because it's symmetrical sort of.
Is it? Okay, I can't tell how. Anyway,
Because these
yeah.
curves that look too dynamic. Yeah.
Is it? Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Shrishti's is also looking good. Very nice. Excellent. Okay. Yep. Very nice, Purvi. Very good. Good lines. Very strong. Nikita's is also good. Everybody's done nice work. Excellent. Okay. Now for the painting. Oh, first, before we start painting here, we'll do a little bit of lettering because we won't be able to do the lettering when we do painting. So we'll move to the next page and I'll give you a few lettering styles to work with. We're going to use one of the easiest styles that we will do, and that's just directly writing with a brush. Now, when lettering, and we're going to do this all of next month, so this should be just a precursor to lettering. What you need to remember in lettering is that you need to first have a baseline. This is where the letters sit. Then you need to determine the height of the letters, the thickness of the letters, and the space between. Between the letters, which means if this is the height and thickness of the letter, and this is the space between, is this space better or is this space better? So that it's the same letter form, but the spacing becomes different. Then you also have thickness of stroke. Now, these are just convenient terms I want to use right now. These are not technical terms. Technically, there are other things that you will learn next month, but for the moment, you just need to know something that is more relevant. So thickness of stroke is whether you want to make your stroke like this, it's just as the word says, or do you want to make it thicker, obviously. And then depending upon the thickness of the stroke, a lot of things will change. The height will change, the space used up by the letter will change. So the one thing that you want to maintain for good lettering is uniformity. So all your letters must look uniform and belonging to the same family. Normally, when we write by hand, we write really fast. We just want to make it legible enough to communicate an idea. But when we are doing more specific lettering, the lettering is also an aesthetic element in the illustration. So you need to take care that it is adding to the illustration. So a lot of times when people are unhappy with their recipes, it's because the illustration turns out fine, and they say my handwriting is so bad or so boring that it doesn't make the recipe look good. It doesn't matter what your handwriting is. If you write even that very carefully, you will be able to make it look pretty. So we're just going to attempt to spruce up whatever handwriting you have today. Now, in terms of the types of letters that we need, this is what we want to aim for. We will need a title. Then we will need a header. Then we will need body text. So this is the hierarchy. Now, the rules of hierarchy are that the eye travels from the attractive to the unattractive, or the bold to the less prominent elements. You want the eye to travel to certain areas of your text. So the title should have the biggest, most important lettering style. Then you should have headers which are bold, and then you should have clear lettering so that in the body text, so that the recipe can actually be read and used. Now, even though you have this hierarchy, you still have to maintain some kind of cohesion between the letters. You can't have one completely different style for the header and completely different body text. And as far as possible, try and make something that you're comfortable making repeatedly. So avoid making calligraphic fonts or lots of twirlies, because there is a whole method to all of that, which we'll come to at some point. All right, now let's try some title fonts. Choose any color you want. And the two that we will do will be just simple variations of the same kind of lettering. Use any color on your palette that you want to use up. I have a beautiful color purple. Now I'm going to write the word pizza. Now, even in the title, oh, 1 minute before we write this, sorry. First, we need to decide what we're going to write. So the two recipes that we have, one is chocolate lava cake with, oh, cake, sorry, with vanilla ice cream. Even when you're writing in rough, you can write it in this form. Create some kind of differentiator in the text. Your titles can also have more than one style of lettering. And the second one is pizza with cherry tomato. And I think it's got some Parmesan. So pizza with cherry tomato and Parmesan. So one is this helps you to first go over the spelling in your head. Then, as you can see, I needed that. I made a tomato, keka, all these things can be done in rough. Then it helps you figure out the layout. It also helps you figure out the volume of the text and how to distribute it more pleasingly. So if you're going to write pizza with cherry tomato and Parmesan, we can write it just like this. Use your brush to create a uniform thickness of the letter and place each letter very carefully on an imagined baseline. Now, if you're not comfortable with this, I shouldn't expect that you would be. You can always make a rough line, which is your baseline, and also a line on top, which is the called the capital height. So focus on keeping the thickness of the stroke for your letters uniform and the space between the letters identical. This space, imagine a vertical space between the edges of the letters that should remain vertical. And write it slowly and carefully.
Aditi, what is the size of the brush that you're using?
I'm using a number 6.
Okay, thank you.
Now, once you've written this, the remaining text is quite a lot. So you can put another line underneath it. This will be the capital height for the next words, but the height of the letters will be a lot smaller. If you write the whole thing large, it becomes too much for the eyes to see. So make a gap between the lines and create 2 line thicknesses. This line is wrong, so because it's too tiny. And then in this, you can either write with color. So you can use a thinner brush if you want and write in a color that is, that will look attractive with this. I'm going to use I think I'll use a burnt.
My lettering is a disaster.
Okay. If
First
it's
of all, I used this brush, and I got parallel lines.
yeah, that's not the
And
right.
then my like P is thin, and then I is thin, and then Z is becoming slowly broader, and then A became even broader, and then one part of the A is like a wave. So
Mm, yeah, so maybe you should give it some more time. Do it a little slower. Okay, now again over here, if you feel the need to write cherry tomato, you can write it in pencil, or I'm going to make a small banner here that says with. And instead of writing the whole cherry tomato, I'm going to make these little dots on the baseline to indicate anchor points, CHERRY space TOMATO. So in doing this, it's very easy to make dots that are equidistant, right? And then you can write in the space in between the dots, that becomes even nicer. So I'm going to write this in. Now this time, Rana, use a thinner brush and make sure that the hair of the brush is combed properly. Cherry. Now when you're writing with the brush also, your lettering will be more conducive if you use strokes going down and to the right. And in places where you have rounded strokes, you can break up the stroke and write it from two directions. From the top to bottom, like an O can be written from the left and clockwise and anti-clockwise. Now the second color that I have used over here, I've deliberately kept it slightly deeper and more muted. I was very tempted to use a nice bright red for cherry tomatoes because that would have been so appropriate. But I thought that I would like the pizza to get more attention than the cherry tomato. And I can do the same thing for the Parmesan. The word and will come here. PARMESAN. But that's far too much to the left. So
And what about with?
I'm going to write that later. So that's the thing, when you're doing decorative lettering, you don't have to write in the order that you are going to read it in. The important elements have to be first put in. And then you can write the other, because writing with and all is very easy to do. But what if you write with in the wrong place? And then cherry tomato goes either too far or comes too close to the left. That can be very disturbing. So this is how you use your rough illustration. And it's so worth spending this time instead of fatafat trying to write. And I'm saying this because I still do it. When I have a project, I will do. When it's not a project, I will, as a challenge, try to write things without using the pencil, without making an illustration in rough. But that, of course, is always welcome, but do it intelligently. After you've done enough work with the pencil, you'll automatically start feeling confident. You'll start seeing how the lines are, where the lines are equal. Now, when you're writing on a curve, in this case, like this word with, I have deliberately written it slightly on the curve. You can you should place the letters in such a way that if this is the curve, each letter will be sitting at the perpendicular. So it'll be sitting at a point that's perpendicular to the curve, like this, always. So when you come to an advanced stage, you will realize that there are some words you'd rather not write in a curved form. If it is like this, now again, all these things, decorative lettering, we will be doing next month. In this case, the letters that come to the side will converge inward, and the letters that are on the convex side of the curve will point outward. So sometimes long words can be a problem. Now, after you've written this, to give your pizza a little more, if this is not enough, you can take a second color to this, maybe with a thinner brush, maybe with a darker color or a second color. And you can paint, I'm using I think this is a number 1 brush. You can create effects like this. Just paint the bottom half again, the same strokes. So only half of the letter becomes deeper, and without really doing extra work, you get an additional effect on what might have been just boring lettering. And then what you can do to unify all of this is use a thin pen like a number 1 brush and make a line parallel to the letters on the left-hand side. Just a line, left and bottom, to imitate maybe a shadow. And I'm doing this because I have some part of my title written in black pen. And if I don't have black pen on the word pizza itself, it might look like it's not connected to these two. But it's not compulsory. It's just my taste. Now with these same rules, do you want to try chocolate lava cake with vanilla ice cream? Now in that case, the vanilla will come, the width will come between chocolate, we'll write chocolate lava cake, then you'll write the width in the same format and then write vanilla ice cream underneath in one line like cherry, tomato and parmesan. Okay, you all want to try doing that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Now here I wanted to show you, because we have a lot of rounded letters. For the letter C, you can write the shape like this. You will write one curve. You paint one curve, and then the bottom of the C you will make going in the other direction. If you try making the C like this, it will fishtail somewhere over here, which you don't want. I'm writing this without using a baseline, and I would welcome everyone to try this. It's not impossible, but you must do it slowly, and you should wait after every letter to just assess. Are your letters coming in the right place? Are they about the same height? Some of them can go upper niche a little bit, which is natural to happen in the beginning, but more or less, is it all looking like it's balanced? Now, in this case, there are certain fun things that can happen. Like if we write LAVA right in underneath the spaces between the previous letters, automatically this will get, the letters will get balanced and center aligned. And I'm writing the letters slightly thinner because I want that to maintain the hierarchy. So the letters will be a little apart also. And the word chocolate has got 9 letters, and lava cake in all has got 8. So this can fit very well. So you should always be on the lookout for these clues in your illustration. See now, automatically the chocolate is getting more importance than the lava cake. But both aren't equally big and they both look like a team. Now, because this has become so big, we can just write with vanilla ice cream in one line also.
Ma'am, did you do any shading in chocolate?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
And in this case now, I'm writing with just simple, but it's small, and vanilla ice cream is going to be rather big. And I'm going to try doing this without those anchor points. So I'm going to keep checking NILLAICECREAM. And for the word with, I'm going to make a line at the top and the bottom. This also is good enough. Okay, are we done? We have just about 15 minutes to do the painting now. If your lettering has dried, you don't need to do the same effect on these two. We can move on to painting our food now. And we will be painting the two simultaneously because firstly, we don't have time, and I want you to put a time limit or learn to do this on a time limit. That way, you will paint a lot faster. Otherwise, you will just sit and keep massaging that illustration. Shall we begin painting? Yeah, all right. Now, first things first, we put all the light colors in, especially the light, very subtle shadows like you will see in the ice cream. And for that, you should always have this generic gray color in your palette. This is made using yellow, not yellow, burnt umber, black, and ultramarine blue. And depending upon the hue you want, you can make it slightly bluer, slightly browner. But at any rate, don't use just a plain black. Now, there are sections on the right of the ice cream which have this shade. Most of the ice cream is just going to be colored with this color, not yellow. So I'm going to make these kinds of brush strokes only from the right side of the ice cream. They're all very subtle, and once you make the stroke, then you just lift the brush. On the left, there are a few marks, but again, very subtle. And to make subtler marks, what you should do is keep your rag handy and keep reducing the amount of paint in your brush. So you only get a very subtle line or shade everywhere. If you're getting a dark shade, immediately wipe the brush. The next thing we're going to do is make this same shade on the plate. Can you see the shadows in the reference image? And even these lines, you have to make them fairly subtle. And a little bit along the edge of the food, even before the food is painted, because this is something we won't be able to make afterwards. We will make this on the spoon as well. As you can see, there's a very thin edge on the left of the spoon, just along the edge of the food, and a little bit on the right. And just a stroke or so along the lines of the design of the spoon in the center, just like this. So you have to leave some places where there is no color, because that's the only way this spoon will look like it is made out of metal. Now, this is what I normally do. If you're in the habit of washing your palettes after every class, stop doing that, because there will be some crevices like that where there will be a color that you desperately need. Like in this case, I have used up the light color, and now I'm going to use a darker, deeper gray. It's the same shade, but much deeper, to give a second thinner layer and more dimension to the shadows in the spoon. So when you're doing illustration, you should have all these colors just handy available in your palette. Done? Now there's some places where you can also use this on the ice cream that's flowing down. So over here, maybe a little bit on this side. you can go over some of these shapes again, but in a smaller area. So they start becoming denser. And then just a little bit on this left side. So you have to be very careful to see where the colors are. I click a picture of this as well. Okay, sorry. Now for the pizza as well, we're going to do a lot of washes, and we'll first start off with use a nice fat brush, like a number 10 or something. And you will create a very neutral, oh my God, my brush is green. So in a space like this, I can create a very neutral yellowish, beigeish shades by mixing maybe a yellow ochre with a little bit of black and maybe a little bit of blue. So this is yellow ochre and black and blue, but it's very watery, as you can see. It's not going to be too distinct. And you can use this to paint most of the areas on the pizza where you have this cheese. But when you're painting it, remember to paint it in light strokes only. Don't paint the whole thing like you're painting a wall. It's very light strokes. We're just going to use this color to fill up the spaces that looks like cheese. You can also use a few washes of gamboge if you feel the need. Keep your hand very light. Most of these colors, most of the patch will be overpainted. Another tip is when you're working on the edge of a book or a paper, use another rough sheet so that if you paint beyond it, then it doesn't go onto the pages underneath, it doesn't bleed underneath. Now to this itself, you can add a little bit of burnt sienna and maybe a little bit of orange. And while this is wet, you can paint the crust. And in painting the crust as well, press the brush so that you don't get one flat color for the crust. See, I'm freely allowing my paint to mix up with the first color that I've made. And I'm deliberately leaving some gaps in between, except I forgot over here. So this illustration, I wanted to be light and fun and should should exude a lot of energy. If we spend a lot of time painting very slowly and very carefully, it can just take away the joy. So just look at the colors that you have and start mixing them. And now, so when colors are still wet, if you say, for example, now I'll apply one deeper color from the edge, just with the tip of my brush, it will make the crust deeper, but the inside edge is lighter. So every successive color that I am putting, I am going to put it in a smaller area or a different space than the previous color. Also a little thin edge along the inside because that part of the crust has burnt a little more. Okay, our class is going to extend a little bit. Huh? Today, are you okay with that, everyone? If you need to leave, you can leave and then watch the recording afterwards. No problem. I'll just complete this with whoever's there.
It's okay, ma'am.
Yeah, good. Okay. Now, this same color you can make a little deeper by adding burnt umber or this base color, whichever you have, and use that color in spaces underneath where you see these cherry tomatoes. It need not be so as dark as I've made it and doesn't have to be uniform. So just in a few places, like this, so that you can start seeing the depth. So what I want you to start practicing is just loosely putting color onto paper. Don't think too much. And that's why that whole time limit thing really works well. You're forced to move your hand in a rush. And at least in the beginning, it's a good limitation to have. That way, firstly, you just take decisions one way or another. You're not spending too much time thinking, should I add red here? Should I add blue here? There is time and space for that, and that's a good thing to do. But in doing that, sometimes you don't listen to your gut. So this is just painting by the gut. Okay, now let's leave the pizza for a while and let's move back to the chocolate lava cake. The colors are fairly simple for the chocolate lava cake. We can just use a combination of burnt umber, a little bit of crimson in the burnt umber will do, and then burnt sienna. So just these three colors, and as we go deeper, we will add blue and black to the color of chocolate. So here again, use your palette to create the color consistency that you need. Make the colors next to each other so you can freely choose one or the other. And then just look at the reference image and paint accordingly. The chocolate lava cake is mostly just a light shade of brown. So that's going to be our burnt sienna. And you can apply it all over, but as you go a little further to the right, while you're applying burnt sienna, as you're coming down here, mix it up and add burnt umber here. Remember this vertically painting so that you can start creating depth, and this will start creating that rounded shape that we need for the cake. Very subtle. And the same dark shade for the inside of this bite. And a few dots while the paint is still damp, and definitely a line from towards the bottom. Now we can use the same kind of colors for a strip of the chocolate sauce on top. And this has got some highlights. So remember to keep the highlight completely white. Don't paint on the highlight at all. When applying in certain cases, if you need to dab the brush, please just dab the brush. All strokes do not have to be plain strokes, and just see the shapes that are being created there. Okay, I'm going to move to a thinner brush now, maybe a number 4 or a number 1, so that I have better control. And this time around, I'm adding a little bit of black to my burnt umber because the chocolate sauce is really dark. But I'm not making it very black also. I'm going to make it slightly deeper, and that way then I can paint some elements in one shot. And in all of this, you can see the colors. You can see the places where the color is dense, where the color is light. So keep changing the color and applying it by slightly flattening the brush so that you don't get a very thick paint there, and it quickly dries up and you can blend the other shades into it easily enough. Along the edge of the cake also, we have a little bit of that chocolate sauce. Not the cake, sorry, the ice cream on top. So pay attention to that as well. So it's all a matter of subtly changing colors and leaving the right highlights in the right place. And if you have practiced a little bit of our color blending exercises, no, then you will be comfortable painting this in one shot as you see the colors change you will start making those modifications to your shades and start getting that light and dark. That's all really there is to it. Are you getting it? I'm hoping everyone is getting this, not a problem.
No, it's my turn now. Like something else.
Did you use the right kind of brush this time, Rana?
Yes, miss. It's a 5 number brush.
Okay. I'll look at it later then. You can just wait for a bit and let me just finish this part. After we finished everything, then I'll have a look. Now with the same dark color that we had created for the chocolate with the black, you can use the same color for a little bit of the texture on the inside of the cake where you made the bite. So then that looks like it's actually broken up. Okay, even for the spoon, we can do the same thing, leave a little bit of a highlight in the right places. And that's it. So this is just one layer, but you can keep adding more and more color in the right places and creating more and more depth. I'm quickly going to paint the raspberries. I think raspberries all will all manage, right? It's not, this is like the fruit that we painted. So just light in the front over here, I'm using scarlet first. And then as I go to the back, I'm going to use a little bit of crimson and make it a little deeper. That's it. And after this has dried, I will use burnt umber for the shadow inside. And maybe a little shadow in the bottom as well. So remember, after this also, we can do about 2-3 layers. But if I'll just demonstrate how the next layers would be, you won't paint the exact same things again. Now you don't have to do this, but I just want to show you that you can just add a few extra dark shades in just a few places to create more depth. And like I explained last time, when you start creating depth and more contrast, it's it starts becoming more intriguing, more, you can see it as more detail. And that is what makes the illustration look a little more attractive. The detail, the highlights. So you'll notice that the shadows between the raspberry also is quite dark. So you can create those All right, shall we move to the pizza now? Is everyone with me or do you? Okay. Now for the pizza, we will use a medium-sized brush like a number 6 or a number 4. And again here, loosely mix these colors. You have a little bit of orange, a little bit of scarlet, a little bit of burnt sienna. These are the colors in the tomato that I can see. So what I do is I'll do this random picking of colors, and again just give these washes first on the entire tomato, barring a few highlights if there are any. If I see some highlights, I will leave them out. Now when I'm painting this, if you notice, I'm not painting with the tip. I flatten the brush and just spread the color. And you can have these colors merge. Now, because we have some pen lines, these you get an idea that these are distinct elements, right? So you don't really need to paint the each tomato absolutely accurately. But do keep a few spaces blank for the highlights, because without highlights, your picture will look flat, whatever it is. I can guarantee you the tomatoes will look like tomatoes, but they won't look three-dimensional or fun. Even if they're not three-dimensional, it's fine. They should look fun. So those few patches of highlight make the whole thing look really interesting. Now it's just a matter of just painting the few sections afterwards, which you see as dark. So the insides of some of the tomatoes you can see as dark, the outsides and inside, so you can see an edge in some places. So the best way to do this is look at the painting with eyes blurred a little bit, and you only see shapes and forms. So just hold your brush a little distance away like that. Keep the consistency normal to watery. Don't make it too watery, because then everything will just become water. We don't want that. But not too thick also, so that when you place the paint on the paper, it just naturally just glides and wants to sit there. The colors for the tomatoes I'm using again are orange, scarlet mostly, and a little bit of burnt sienna. So the burnt sienna and scarlet will go into places like this, like the inside of the tomatoes. The orange is for the highlights. And even if you just do patches of painting, make sure that the patches are slightly different from each other. If not tomato, this is going to look like pepperoni, but it will definitely still look like a pizza. This is not going to look like a bhakri. It's not going to look like a flying saucer. It's not going to look like any other thing but a pizza, right? So what happens is when you have these random strokes, it crowds up food items. And that's what we need. We need everything to look like it's really crowded. I'm going back to one of these dark shades from before and adding some more strokes in a few places like this, closer to the tomato. Maybe even a gray shade will be fine somewhere over here. And just adding some lines to for it to look like the folds on the cheese. Where it is dark, I'm going to just make this on the inside edge to create the contrast. And that too only in a few places, as always, not universally throughout, because again, that looks really boring. A little more of this reddish brown shade for the crust. That'll be nice. So this becomes a little more defined. My crust has become a little redder than I would have liked, but it's still looking quite impressive. So I'm not going to be too bothered about the exact shade for this illustration. And in most cases, you will notice that it doesn't really matter as far when food is concerned. It 19 piece or even 15 piece is fine. Now I'm creating the color of the basil using green and sap green and a little bit of cobalt blue, and adding it just as strokes wherever I can see them in the reference image. And now suddenly things will start looking so much more alive. Now again, this painting, I can make another 3-4 layers to make more depth in it. But even without that, you still can use something like this for a recipe and it'll look good. One important thing to do, of course, always is to put a shadow underneath. And since we have a nice shadow on the left, we will use the same color combination, burnt umber, black, and ultramarine blue, or any other blue is fine. And run a line. I think I want more burnt umber here. Run a line on the inside edge, this open blank edge of the pizza over here, so that we create contrast. But don't fill up this whole space. Keep a little gap there. And you can also have a line run like this over here. So this will look like a shadow. And the dark shade will pull up all these light colors that we have made and give us that contrast, the drama that we need in our picture to really make things pop. All right. So this is our basic illustration. And I think you'll be able to make a lot of illustrations with just this style. Oh, cat crossing. Sorry about that. Oh, wow. Very nice, yeah, Bhakti. It's looking so good. I am most impressed.
Thank you, ma'am.
How do you like it?
I really like it.
It's so cool. I love it. Very nice. Awesome.
Thank you.
You've got the depth. All the colors are looking nice and bright.
Yes.
Good job. Let's see. Very nice. So Purvi, the base color for the pizza has become a little darker, I think, than was expected. So yeah, so what you can do is that you could probably make the crust a little well done.
Okay.
So just a little darker shade on the crust will make the base of the pizza look more like there's richer tomato sauce or something like that.
Okay.
So then we'll increase contrast that way. But other than that, you've got the shape, you've got the likeness of it. That is very
Okay.
important.
Okay. Thank you.
Please share on the group also so I can see it in more detail.
Okay. Definitely.
Nice. Very nice. Nikita, yours are also looking very good. But your tomatoes on the bottom are looking a little more orange. So you could use a little scarlet as a second layer. And in the center where I had kept that Parmesan cheese, it's looking a little too blank. So a few either strokes to make some slices or just put one tomato over there so that it doesn't look like a blank space. Other than that, it's turned out really nice.
Okay. Thanks.
Oh, wow. Very nice, Srishti. Lovely. Excellent. Good job. Rana, yours is also looking nice. So your base, Rana, is very blank. So that's I think you can add a little yellow ochre base where the cheese is supposed to be. Yellow ochre and blue maybe, so that it's like a neutral creamish cheesy color.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So now just a little note on the text. Very nice. Karan, you can add a little more color or shadows so that you increase the contrast in the picture. That'll look awesome.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So now that we have this, you can experiment with the titling, put the titles in these pages. And when you are writing the text, just look for some random recipe of whatever you want. And when you're writing the text, make some lines. I'll just show you that part. Then we can end class for today. So you must leave space for, now that you know how much space you need for each of your titles, you can leave that amount of space. Always leave a certain space from the top. Don't write a title too close to the edge. If need be, you can make the lettering even thinner and write the entire chocolate lava cake in one line. But then you can't make it too tall. Otherwise, you'll have to make them very narrow. Whatever style you are doing, first practice it in rough so you get an idea of how much area you need to spare for the title. On facing pages, try and keep your titles aligned. They shouldn't be one upper, one niche. At least the top should be aligned. So the same amount of space on the top should be allotted. Even if it's a bigger, taller letter, you should have the tops aligned. Yeah, then leave a margin from the left and right always for your recipes, and then start making your lines. Now, normally our lettering when we write in a ruled book is about 7 millimeters apart. But you can write it even smaller if you want. You can make it 5 millimeters apart or even less. But try to make these lines freehand. Don't use a scale. If you have a template, now I have a template which I've made for my students. At some point you can use that template, but I want you to get used to also making these lines without using a ruler or a template. Do not write on the line. Use the line as a guide to make sure that your writing is straight. You can always erase these lines afterwards. If you draw the line and you write on the line, there's a chance that a freehand line is not going to be absolutely straight. So don't even bother. It's just more or less telling you that, okay, instead of going up like that or down like that, this is where we have to write more or less. Another thing is keep your sentences short. Don't write very long sentences. So divide your recipe into ingredients on the left, which is a narrow column, and the method on the right, which will be a slightly larger column, and no more than 5 to 7 words on that in that column either. Okay, that's it. I think it's turned out awesome. So I'll finish this later at night and I will do some text on this also so you get an idea of how to fill up text. Okay.
I did this yesterday.
Nice.
Can you see it?
Yeah, put it on the group now because on the camera I can't really tell the details. So just put it on the group, then I'll be able to see it better. Very nice. Well done.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, all of you, please put up today's illustrations on the group so I can share some comments, and I can also, enlarge and see what I can suggest you could do differently. All right. Okay, so next week we will be doing food journaling, which is like when you're traveling, how you will illustrate food and write about that. So if you've got any pictures of stuff that you have clicked when you've traveled and you found very intriguing, send that to me and I can see what we can do with all those pictures. All right.
Ma'am, will we do any Indian food?
I will be doing Indian food in tomorrow's class and the afternoon class on Fridays, but we can share the video. So even the previous video, we did noodles or something in the past in Tuesday's class. So we'll eventually be sharing all of those videos also. Whenever you have time, you can look at those.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Bye then. I shall see you next week.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Bye.